His laughter had died down when I finally approached, nudging him with my elbow to get his attention and causing the redhead to jump. "Calm down. I'm ready to go back now," I commented, and he quickly nodded, offering to carry the extra stuff in my hands, which I gladly accepted before we were off, heading back to the campsite. Pushing back the leaves on the bushes, he lets me pass through first, and I nearly trip over the two bodies lying limp just beside the plant. "Oh, I forgot about those guys," the crimson soldier beside me comments to himself in a sheepishly grin, falling onto his features while I deadpanned. "Are they dead?" He quickly shakes his head. "No, don't worry, they're just knocked out," he informs, and I grumble in disappointment. "What a shame," I commented, idly kicking at the side of one of the bodies before walking off in the direction of camp. The crimson soldier follows after me, quick to come back to my side instead of his spot earlier behind. The fallen tree comes up swiftly, and I take back the extra stuff, letting him scoop me up once again in his arms before leaping over the wood. Then he took back all of my stuff, and we continued on. "What's so important about this trip anyways?" he questions innocently, eyes trained forward to make sure we stayed on track. "You weren't paying attention to the whole instructions?" I panted, and he quickly shakes his head, denying and saying he just needed a refresher is all. "The whole trip is to get me to the kingdom, that's it," I answer easily, and his brows furrowed, finally glancing towards me again. "No, I knew that part. I just don't know what we're going to do when we get there," he rephrases, and I pause. The silence that follows my unwillingness to answer the simple-sounding question is loud, passing between us as we grow closer to the light of the camp. "Well, since we're asking random questions, because you don't pay attention in the introduction," I started, seeing him open his mouth to protest. "What's your name again?" I ask, snapping the silence like a toothpick and causing the crimson soldier beside me to pause in his step. Then his head snaps my direction. "You don't remember my name?" he questions, voice sounding loudly again, this time in complete disbelief and cites offense in his feature. "Well, it's not really remember. More like I don't really know your name," I explain with a nervous chuckle. "Look who wasn't paying attention at the introduction now," he comments. "I was paying attention," I defended. "We've been traveling for a week, and you don't know my name this whole time?" he states, flinging his free hand around with his own words. "I kind of know your name," I blunted out without talking, and he deadpans. "Okay, then what's my name then?" he questions, and I pause, expression falling slack. Sarohana? I slowly answer, causing his face to scrunch up, and he's laughing at me again. "Names can be hard, okay?" I try to defend myself, but he just continues to laugh. "Stop laughing and tell me your name," I demand, but it seems to fall on deaf's ear as he continues to crackle. "Come on, just tell me. My naivety can't keep calling you the Crimson Soldier." "Because I don't know your name, and the narrator can't just keep saying that for you," I complain, wanting to smack the author for her laziness. As we come to a stop on the outskirts of the camp, the soldier next to me breathes in, bringing his furry hand to wipe away at the corners of his eyes where tears had begun to gather. "Kirishima Eijiro," he finally answers, smiling down at me with those sharp teeth of his. Staring up at the soldier, I catch his crimson gaze once then. "Then thank you, Kirishima, for staying earlier," I finally say, and he seems to understand what I mean, his expression softening at the phrase. "You're welcome." He steps foot into camp, Kirishima dropping me off at my tent before leaving to sit an extra stuff back in the cargo part of my carriage and receive 2 other guards. And it isn't long before he returns, calling me back from my tent. Poking my head out of the entrance, I glance at the redhead in confusion when I don't see the other 2 guards with him. And I guess he noticed the confusion in my features because he quickly lets me know. "I sent them to go get the unconscious soldiers in the woods." "All right, good job, Kirishima," I addressed, and he blinks at the use of his own name, face heating beneath the torchlight casted throughout the camp. Then he clears his throat, trying to get back on track. "The commander called for an early lights out," he informed, and I nodded in understanding. "All right, thank you for letting me know," I turned, ready to step back into my tent for the night before pausing when I finally didn't notice he wasn't moving. Is there anything else, Kirishima? I wondered, raising a brow in question as I paused my movements. He nods. I was wondering if it would be alright for me to take extra shifts guarding your tent from now on. He asks, my expression shifting to one of peak confusion now. Why? Well, with what happened earlier. I don't know if you have any other soldiers might try something in the middle of the night. He explains, facial features turning serious. I know I might sound paranoid, but I just want to do my job and keep you safe, my lady. He states, and with a genuine hint in his voice, I sigh, nodding in understanding. All right, you can. I agree, and he lets out a breath of relief. But every 1 or 2 nights, you will switch out with one of the others, so you can get a full night's sleep. Got it? I add, and he nods quickly. The sound of our voices grow near as 2 shadows appear at his side. My other guards sit with the 2 unconscious bodies of the perverts slung over the shoulder. Well, one of their soldiers, the blonde, was dragging one as he grabbed. Their conversation had fallen into silence as they came to stand at the redhead's side, most likely waiting for us to finish our talk before asking him for anything. He stiffens his posture as they near, and I look over as a gesture of acknowledgement before turning back to Kirishima, who glances at the 2 as well. Anyways, good night, soldier. I bid a farewell as he nods, looking away from the other 2 to catch my eyes. Good night, my lady. He bows his head respectfully before I close the curtain of my tent and head off to bed. Time skip. That night, like every other night, the torches across the camp are put out, leaving the moon to cast its light over everything. I had to wait a little longer, being extra quiet when I grabbed my satchel and slung it over my shoulder. I had to make sure the soldiers posted just outside my tent didn't hear when I lifted the backflip to exit. And following the same route I had been for the past week, I duck, freeze, and graze my hand across the grass, blinking to activate my quirk for a moment before venturing out. The moon shone brightly tonight, and I kept glancing behind me in a slightly paranoid manner, even though I knew I wouldn't be followed. I continued on, weaving past trees to get apart to where the horses were tied to rest and graze as much as they like. And trying not to scare or rile any of them up, I walked to the side, finding the 2 closest to me and quietly getting their attention, their heads turned, eyes catching on mine before they tried to turn their full bodies, pulling the reins, keeping them tied to the tree as I near. Since I used my quirk earlier, I have to save some for later, so I quickly approached and handed the lady a sugar cube before stepping past her and moving onto the male. He had pulled at his reins too hard, so I pushed him back a bit before holding out the cube for him, but he didn't take it. I blinked in slight confusion, moving my hand a bit in front of his face to try and get him to eat, but he just wouldn't. And while waiting, I hear the girl behind me stomp her hoof. I assume it's probably because she wants another sugar cube, so I returned my attention back to the boy in front of me. Not feeling it today? I questioned him, noting the ears pinned back against his head. Then I hear the lady behind me snort, an attitude from her nostrils. I deadpan when I feel her push on my back, my head tilting to look over my shoulder. I already gave you one, young lady, I stated, before pausing in confusion. She wasn't looking at me. Her ears were pinned back as she stared at something inside the tree line surrounding us. Body angled so her side would be pressed onto my back, separating me from whatever she was huffing at. Another warning snort leaves her nostrils. The boy in front of me, backing to the side with pinned ears as well. His own hoof stomping into the ground as his head pointed in the same direction. Now I was getting worried. What could they see to stoop out so badly? With another push into me, I moved, ducking my head beneath her neck to see what she had been giving so much attitude to. The batch of trees didn't show any sign of movement, and after a few seconds of silence, plus the 2 snorts of warning exchanged between the 2 stires, I deemed they probably just heard a deer or something. So I scoffed, pushing at her side a bit and tossing the sugar cube back into my satchel before closing it. There's nothing there. Calm down, I usher, reaching up to pat the boy's head, but he just pulls away, shorting something, whatever they appear to see behind me. I sigh, reaching back and planting my head on the girl's side, blinking to figure out what they were getting on so worked about. Uh, Kirishima? Called quietly, brows furrowing as I glanced out from behind the girl Shire again. And this time, a familiar mess of spiky red hair emerges from behind one of the trees.